I'm Lisa. Standing in my parents' living room on Christmas Eve, I watched as my mother held a sheet of paper, about to read out the names of the grandchildren who deserved gifts. The room was filled with the warm glow of the Christmas tree and the sweet smell of cinnamon rolls, but my heart was heavy. My daughters, Lily and Mia, sat quietly beside me, their eyes fixed on the presents under the tree. As my mother began to read, I knew what was coming. Lily and Mia's names were nowhere on the list, while my sister Sarah's twins, Ethan and Ava, were at the top. Sarah gave me a smug smile from across the room, and my mother continued as if my girls didn't exist. I took a deep breath and walked over to the tree. I picked up a small red box, wrapped in matte paper with a white ribbon and a tag written in Lily's handwriting. I carried it over to my mother and placed it in her lap. She looked at me with a confused expression, waiting for an explanation. I simply said, "This is from the girls. Open it now." She hesitated for a moment, then slowly pulled the ribbon and lifted the lid. As she took out the folder inside, her face paled. The first line on the page read, "Account number 567890012, opened in the name of Lisa Thompson, April 15th, 2016. Total drawn to date, $150,000. Her hands trembled as she read the line again, and then she looked at me with a look of recognition and fear. It all started a few months ago. I'm a forensic accountant at a small firm in town. I spend most of my nights poring over spreadsheets, referencing numbers, and tracing missing funds. I've always been the reliable one in my family. My parents, Robert and Margaret, have always counted on me to handle the family's financial paperwork. My sister Sarah, on the other hand, has always been the dramatic one. She's had her share of financial troubles, from failed relationships to job losses. My husband, Tom, is an architect. He's a quiet and steady man, and we have two wonderful daughters, Lily and Mia. We've worked hard to build our life together, and we've never asked my parents for financial help. 2 years ago, my mother introduced the Deserving Grandchildren list. She said it was to teach the kids about responsibility and hard work. But every year, Lily and Mia's names were left off, while Ethan and Ava were always on it. I asked my mother why, and she said my girls hadn't shown enough respect. I couldn't understand what a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old were supposed to do to show respect. Sarah just told me I should teach my kids some manners. Last year, as I watched Ethan and Ava open their tablets and new coats while Lily and Mia sat empty-handed, I promised myself I'd find out what was going on. In September, Tom and I decided to refinance our house. Interest rates had dropped and we wanted to save some money. We had a good credit score and we'd pre-qualified through our bank. But then, the loan officer called. She said there was an account on my credit report that we needed to discuss. I was shocked. I'd always been careful with my finances. I pulled my full credit report and found a revolving line of credit that I had never opened. The account was opened in 2016, and the primary account holder was me. I started to dig deeper. I requested the full account records from the lender. It turned out that in 2016, my father's small construction business was in trouble. He'd taken on a big project that he couldn't afford, and he needed money to keep it afloat. He asked me to sign some paperwork, saying it was just a formality to help the business. I trusted him and signed without reading every page. It was a primary account application, not a co-sign. Over the past 8 years, my father had been drawing money from this account to cover his business losses, Sarah's rent, and Ethan and Ava's private school tuition. The mailing address for the account was my parents' house, so I never received any statements or alerts. I spent the next few weeks building a ledger, tracing every transaction. I found that the large draws usually happened around September for back to school expenses and December for Christmas gifts. The money was going directly into my mother's personal account, and from there it was used to support Sarah and her family. I realized that the Deserving Grandchildren list was a way to keep me from asking questions. By excluding Lily and Mia, they thought I'd stop coming to family gatherings and never discover the truth. I knew I had to take action. I called my colleague, Rachel, a fraud examiner. She helped me draft a fraud affidavit and file an identity theft report with the FTC. I also sent formal disputes to all 3 credit bureaus. As I watched my mother read the documents in the folder, the room was dead silent. Aunt Helen, who was sitting on the love seat, leaned forward, trying to read the page. Uncle David put down his drink and stared at me in disbelief. Sarah's wine glass froze in mid-air, and my father sat in his recliner, his eyes fixed on the muted TV. My mother finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Lisa, where did you get this?" I replied calmly, "From the bank. You and Dad opened this account in my name without my knowledge in 2016. Aunt Helen let out a gasp, and Sarah stood up, her face turning red. "This can't be true. You're just trying to ruin Christmas," she shouted. I looked at her and said, "Your children's tuition and all those gifts were paid for with money taken from me without my consent. This is not about ruining Christmas. This is about the truth." My father finally spoke, his voice low. "I never wanted you to find out like this." I knew he wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was just sorry he'd been caught. I continued. "The fraud affidavit was filed 2 weeks ago. The investigation is already underway. The $150,000 debt will be reassigned to you and Dad. Legally, my name will be cleared from the account, and my credit will be restored." My mother started to cry, not out of remorse but out of fear. "We were going to fix it. You don't understand the pressure we were under," she said. I didn't have the energy to argue. I knew the process was already in motion. I picked up Lily's reindeer cards from the floor and said, "My girls will never have to earn their place at this table. They deserve love unconditionally." Then I went to the kitchen to get Tom, Lily, and Mia, and we drove home in silence. The investigation took 75 days. The bank confirmed the fraud, and the $150,000 debt was formally reassigned to my parents. My credit score started to recover, and our refinance went through. Sarah lost the tuition funding for Ethan and Ava, and they had to transfer to a public school. Sarah called me once, blaming me for ruining the family. I didn't return her call. My mother sent me a text saying they'd made mistakes under financial pressure, but she didn't apologize. I didn't respond. Lily's reindeer cards are now on our refrigerator. She never asked about her grandmother's list again. I've learned that love should never be something you have to earn, and sometimes the truth is the only way to set things right.